What's going on? All thanks for tuning in once again. Let's talk heavyweight boxing. Let's recap Parker versus Zang, as well as Ngannou versus Joshua. Firstly, let's talk Parker versus Zang. So I thought that Zang was obviously, more of the power puncher in this one, which we expected. Knocked him down twice, knocked Parker down twice with his signature punch as well early in the fight. But, that's where it ends. I don't know what he was trying to achieve, especially in the later rounds. I don't know what his corner was trying to tell him or what his corner was saying to him, but surely they knew about his conditioning. I mean, it was terrible. Parker, full props to Parker. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but at the end of the day, Parker was dropped twice. So basically 2 10-8 rounds, In my opinion, Zhang did win another round. So, it could have easily been a draw. Because Zhang was the interim champion. Zhang was the guy that had the belt. And we all know in boxing you gotta beat the champ, or beat the guy that's number one to earn that respect, to earn that number one spot. So Parker, he definitely did earn it because he was a lot more busier, and Zhang some rounds didn't even throw any punches. It just seemed like he was convinced that he won, or he just couldn't find Parker. He was breathing heavily in the fight, he was gassing out Zhang. And, hurting Parker in the third round, you thought that he would try to, put the pressure on Parker, try to end the fight, try to hurt him more, but he was just far too patient with the quicker fighter, with the guy that had the legs, had the stamina, had the endurance, had the agility. Most importantly, had the punch output. He was throwing a hell of a lot more punches than Zhang. So I'm just confused, what Zhang's corner was saying to him in this fight, especially after that third round. Like I say, surely the conditioning coach would have known that he's going to gas out. All he needed to do was, win a couple of rounds, and that would have basically won him the fight, But Parker was just far too busy. He was great with movement. He was able to, move from left to right. He was able to move out of the pocket when he needed to, at different angles. So it was hard for Zhang to find him. And most importantly, he was able to keep Zhang away with the jab, which I mentioned that he needed to do, was to keep him away, keep throwing the jab. Say if Zhang does get close, he needs to get away from the corner, which he managed to do. He did get caught in the 8th round. While he was on the ropes, Zhang managed to hurt him, which I said was one of Zhang's strengths. He throws short power shots, which are hard to dodge because, they are at short range. So, Zhang was successful at that stage of the fight, when he dropped him in the 8th round. Obviously, when he dropped him in the 3rd round, but it just seemed like Zhang was very confident that he could take out Parker instead of being open to possibly going the distance, possibly having to, establish more than just power punches. And I think this was a lot to do with the movement of Parker. But I was very surprised that Zhang couldn't get his engine going. He couldn't really initiate attack because they did fight each other in the past. They did fight in the amateurs, and Zang did win on points. So it was clearly a case of youth versus a guy that's, lost it in terms of stamina wise. Father Time has caught up to Zang, you could say. He definitely does have issues with his stamina. Very dangerous fighter, and 8 rounds, you could say. He managed to drop Parker in the 8th round. Very dangerous, but then, as Andy Lee was pointing out, he does slow down. He was basically telling Parker he's only going to get slower. He's only going to get slower. Just keep doing what you're doing. Great boxing. That was the plan, to outbox Zhang. Zhang, taking Parker's best punches, basically saying, I'm not hurt. I think he's trying to, convince the judges that, these shots aren't hurting me. I dropped this guy twice, So, although Parker looked like he was more busted up after the fight, Parker did outbox Zhang. And Zhang just done nothing in those last rounds. There's final rounds that counted. Like I said, 2 knockdowns. All he needed was two rounds to win, to get the draw. One of the judges did score the draw, and then one of the judges only gave him 1 round, besides the 2 knockdowns. 3 rounds in total. And, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. Zhang does really need to work on his conditioning. I don't think that he'll have, success towards taking guys out early, like we saw in the Parker fight. Parker managed to get back up. Guys that can move well, guys that can box well, Zhang's going to have a lot of trouble with them. Think Joe Joyce, he was coming forward. Parker was moving backwards. He was circling, he was changing angles, So, guys like Parker, guys like Usyk, guys like Fury, I don't think that Zhang's going to have much success against guys that can box well. Especially with his engine, so he needs to work on his conditioning. If it is a health issue, if it is maybe just father time, who knows? It could be age, it could be a health issue. Whatever it is, he needs to fix it in the rematch. If he can't fix it in the rematch, then he needs to definitely knock out Parker early. Finish him off, put on the pressure. He knows he can drop him now. He knows that he can land the punch. He knows that he can knock him down with 1 punch. A lot of people were talking about Parker's chin. So, he managed to drop Parker early. And the only time Parker has been dropped in the past is late. So, Zhang is definitely a powerhouse. Parker definitely does have the skill, what it takes to beat Zhang. I think he definitely has improved Parker in terms of defense. Like I mentioned, he does keep his hands up a lot more. I think if Zhang fought him in the past, he would have beat Parker. But Parker has definitely learned a lot from Andy Lee, from Tyson Fury. A lot better defense from Parker. And just throwing punches, great output, like I mentioned. Great performance from Parker. He got the win. 2 good back-to-back wins, Wilder and Zhang, the 2 big punches in the heavyweight division. So, what else can I say, Fair play to Parker. He done what he needed to do. He survived. Like I mentioned, he needs to survive the first 6. In this case, he had to survive the first 8. Zhang dropping him in the 8th round. And then he, outboxes him. Dominates in terms of landing punches, in terms of being busy, in terms of moving better, ring generalship, all that. Parker didn't really look tired. Zang looked like he was very tired and like he was struggling to find Parker. So the game plan needs to definitely change in the rematch for Zhang. Obviously Parker, he beat him once and he needs to repeat the same thing in the rematch. If Zhang doesn't have that engine, if he does really have health issues, which it looked like in that fight, he needs to put the pressure on earlier and finish him off within 8 rounds. With the Joshua and Ngannou fight, this fight was just a complete blowout, a complete dominant performance from Joshua. It just came to experience versus the novice, Francis Ngannou. That was only his second fight as a professional. And Joshua, once he went southpaw, we all know this in boxing is that, when a southpaw is challenging the orthodox fighter, you can throw those lead right hands, there's lead left hands. If you're southpaw, you can throw the lead left. You can throw the lead right if you're orthodox. And that's what Joshua done, he kept him at mid to long range, walked in and threw a straight right. When Ngannou swapped, from orthodox to southpaw, immediately, he threw that straight right, knocked him down, and I think he never recovered after that, I really do. Joshua throwing hard punches and then finished him off with the punch that he started with, the straight right. And that was the fight, very short, just winning there, no hesitation from Joshua, just winning there and finished the job, which was really good to see, because Francis Ngannou, second professional fight. I was saying this in my other video that if he really wants to consider boxing, he needs to fight somebody outside of the top 10 or maybe even ranked 10 fighter, to build himself up. You can't just expect to go against, top level fighters and expect to win. Because this may, completely get him out of the game. So, it was definitely bad management from his management team. I know that he did get the big payday. Maybe he was just after that, and we'll just leave it at that, who knows, but he shouldn't have been ranked 10 in the first place. He shouldn't have been able to fight Joshua and then possibly getting a title shot, that's far too soon. So I'm glad that things turned out how they did. I do strongly believe that Tyson Fury was unprepared in the first fight. Who knows, they may run it back, but I think if they do, in fact, I know if they do, that Fury's just going to outbox him. But overall, full props to Parker. Joshua, good on Joshua for, getting the knockout so early. It was really needed for the sport. And yeah, that's all I really got to say, Great fights, great results. Parker Zhang 2, let me know what you think of that. Let me know what you think of Joshua's performance in the comments. Other than that, thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you next time. Peace. Have a good day. And I'll see you guys soon. Have a good one. Peace.